What's up, people? My name is Jordan Farmer. This is the Uncommon Ground YouTube channel where we are indoctrinating the masses. And today I'm going to be breaking down why I'm a moderate and what the scientific underpinnings are of a moderate political philosophy. Just to start off real quick, I'm going to start off with an observation, and then I'm going to create, and then out of that observation and the explanation for that observation will sort of be the underpinnings of where I'm going with this video. In any free, open, democratic system, you have a left and a right that emerges. In Britain, in Israel, in the United States, wherever, you have something like a left and a right emerge, and the right is typically some kind of conservative in the technical sense of that, conserving something about the traditions, and they're sort of about hanging on to that. Anyways, and then the left wingers are progressives. So you have conservatives and progressives. And whether it's a 10-party system or a 2-party system or a no-party system, real quick, George Washington in his exit speech called for banning and making illegal political parties, mainly because it divides us, it does not unite us. We are the United States of America, and you can never advocate for all of the people in a certain political party. Some of them will fail you, some of them will be corrupt, some of them will be wrong, and no one party will ever have all the answers for everything at all times, ultimately. So the party system is very flawed, but we can work around it, and frankly, it's an obstacle to those who are lazy. Once you're willing to do the work, or once you're willing to be uncomfortable slightly from an intellectual standpoint, you can get past the tribal sort of programming in nature. It takes time, but if you're willing to do it, you can get there, and it actually isn't a whole lot of stress and energy involved, because it's pretty much just being open. Anyways, the observation that there's a left and a right that emerge. I believe that these are hyper personalities or super personalities that have evolved on the societal level in order to basically view the world through two essential lenses that reflect the essential question of politics. And different human personality traits have evolved and created sort of these super personalities in society that's the left and the right. But they're fundamentally extremes, and personality science shows us that most people are in the middle. About 70% of people are more similar to each other in the middle of the personality spectrum than they are the extremes. Especially the far extremes, not just beyond those sort of 35 percentiles on each side. What made me sort of get along this sort of line of thinking was understanding and researching Jordan Peterson's lab and personality science and everything that's been happening in relation to his work there. And the two traits that are most predictive of political preferences are openness, your openness to new ideas or experiences. It's kind of both sides of that. And then conscientiousness, which is your sharpness and rigidity of thinking versus your flexibility and your capacity to analyze things across categories and to see the wrinkles and permeations between them, or to think, on the other side, conservative, very rigidly. So conservatives are high conscientiousness, low openness, which means they're basically predetermined or pre-programmed to perceive and to pick up on what is valuable about the traditional system, how to operate with discipline and effectiveness within the traditional system, and they are slow to accept changes, and they're very rigid from a conceptual standpoint in their beliefs. So that's why most right-wingers are very principle-focused in their analysis and thinking. The progressives, that's the conservatives, the progressives also, conservatives are concerned with the individual's duty to the system and upholding that traditional system. The left wing is much more concerned with pushing past tradition, innovating new things, taking on the new challenges, and they sort of push beyond barriers. Again, they look between the categories, so they're less likely to be rigidly attached to a principle. They're much more likely to just be sort of pragmatic or just sort of feel things, or use emotional reasoning to try to create sort of a moral claim in certain instances. But it's very, very loosely, like they might be pro-scientific, so there's some sort of scientific approach that they claim to apply, but the realities of political science and political engineering are much more subtle than just what people think they're saying when they say they have a scientific approach, because basically what they mean is the evidence that I've seen that links up to the things that I pick up on and perceive as most valuable are the scientific truth. But conservatives are, conservatives view themselves very much the same way. It's not quite, science, but it's, reason, logic, whatever, principled thinking, or, wisdom of the past. Anywho, so you have these two halves that, on one hand, says what is working about the past system. So this is the fundamental question of politics. What is working about the current traditional system? And then, there we go. And then what needs to be changed, or what needs to evolve, what needs to be created new. So it's like old versus new. What needs to be preserved about what is old, and what needs to be created, or what's outdated about what's old. So what needs to be created anew, or innovated, or pushed forward. And so it's like, what do we keep the same? What do we change? That's the fundamental question. And left-wingers are much more concerned with collective compassion towards all individuals. So it's a top-down sort of consideration and philosophy, and it's because they're much more empathetic and compassionate, and sort of thinking about that, sort of thinking about the tribe, thinking about the whole. Whereas, and so it's like, how do we set up the collective system on the left-winger side? How do we set up the collective system to maximize the benefits of all individuals? And then on the other side, the conservatives say, what can an individual you do to not only help yourself, but then ultimately help your society? They tend to give a lot more to charity. Left-wingers tend to just support higher taxes, because they're like, well, I'm for more charity if other people also have to do more charity. But if it's just me doing the charity, then I'm being wronged somehow, or I'm like it, because it's, I don't know, like if you're not willing to give to poor people, or you're not willing to give to charity unless other people do it too, I don't consider you a very compassionate person personally. Like that is not how I like giving people free stuff from the government, from taxpayers, and from the government dole, or from the government coffers. I don't consider that compassionate. You can come to conclusions that lead you in that direction from a compassionate place, but it's not compassion. I don't know. I don't value it as much, because you're both paying the same taxes, but one person's giving to charity. But you also get deductions off of charity, so it's a whole mess. But those are fundamentally the extremes, like hyper-specialized super personalities in the society that pick up on those two fundamental questions, and they sort of perceive and pick up on those sides of the equation faster than the rest of us. All of us in the average sort of can understand the types of thinking that they're engaging in, and understand the values that they are seeing, the value hierarchies, and the values embedded within what they're seeing. But we have to do the work as moderates, and as people that are sort of in the central part of the personality spectrum, as much as we can, to do that work in between the left and the right, in order to establish what the ideal policy is. So my theory is that we have these evolved super personalities that we must respect, and we can utilize, and then through freedom of speech and free and open debate and conversation and analysis, and being willing to change your mind, being willing to see that I can have value in what I'm saying, you can have value in what you're saying, and it doesn't even necessarily have to negate each other. Often, if you hear me talking in politics, I will try to do my best to articulate the value on both sides, because I see value on both sides. And I really genuinely try to understand why people are thinking the way that they're thinking, what makes them come to the conclusion that they have. And when you do that, and when you find that there's value behind their process and in their conclusions, and they are commenting on realities in the real world, if you then choose to ignore it for partisan politics, that is the toxicity and the trap that traditional thinking from a political standpoint gets you in. So even if you are an extremist from a personality standpoint, and I'm kind of on that, I'm on the high end of the openness spectrum and on the low end of the conscientiousness spectrum. So I'm much more of a left-winger actually by temperament, but I'm agreeable and some other things. So I have worked my way. I grew up in a conservative household, so I guess I kind of started here and was sort of naturally inclined here, and I've sort of been able to bridge it for myself. And in doing so, have, I think discovered these sort of larger truths. But we in the middle are the majority, and we in the middle dictate who is in office, and we in the middle can get along most easily, and we in the middle can come to conclusions about ideal policy and actually get them implemented. And when it's the majority of the 70% of the people in the middle that you're appealing to, you're going to have very rational, very reasonable, and very finely tuned and engineered and flexible policies that can allow for all, essentially most or all of the people to be happy with that policy, because you're trying to get at the center right and the center left, but maximize the value of their positions, not minimize them or degrade them, or say you're a bigot, racist, homophobe, or say you're a libtard, snowflake, whatever. It is not easy to adopt a moderate mindset, and I am far from perfect in doing this. But if you attempt to do this and you attempt to get past thinking of yourself, like if you're a Republican, Democrats are your enemies, and libertarians and Green Party people are the inconvenient people who lose you elections, or just those weirdos. And then if you're a Democrat, it's essentially the reverse, where the Green Party sort of like those people that keep you from winning elections. The libertarians are those weirdos, and right-wingers are the devil. And then if you're a libertarian, you sort of want to, shoot on all sides and like, none of you guys like freedom. And then if you're a Green Partier, you're kind of just sort of fed up with corporatism and the corruption, and you care about the environment, and you also care about just trying something new. It's sort of a home for the lost boys of the progressive movement, where they realize that the left-wing political system, the Democrat Party, is essentially completely sold out. Republicans are split. Some Republicans are actually really adhering to the people, and large, like probably 50 to 70% of Republicans are establishment. Democrats are almost 100% establishment, because they know, because Democrat voters are easy, honestly. Like if right-wingers decided to start pandering to left-wingers, like I feel like they would win very easily, because left-wingers are kind of easy. Like if you talk about the environment, and you talk about oppressed minorities and gay people and stuff, and you act real compassionate, I mean, it doesn't matter what your policies are, or what your results are, or what actually is happening to the communities Democrats are in charge of. They just seem to be cool with it. It doesn't really matter how many people suffer under their regimes. It doesn't matter how hard life is. None of that matters, because they are somehow righteous. I don't like it. I beat up on the left only because right now, in my opinion, trying to come from a moderate position, the sort of center of gravity where the rational side of things is center right now. Maybe in the 90s, for sure in the 90s, I would have said the opposite. And definitely in the early 2000s, and like getting into it's interesting. Within a few years of each other, Occupy Wall Street and the Tea Party emerged. So those were sort of the initial populist sort of little flames, or little bits of embers that were burning, and then eventually it's grown into very, very open people versus the elite sort of mentality now, which I think will only grow until we have what I call a populist correction, which just means that institutions institutions drift from their initial vision, because they can only do that. You're in the beginning, you're in tune with your initial vision as an institution, and then as time goes on, you can only deviate from that. And if you deviate enough, eventually you're corrupt. So you need a populist correction where it's about what the people need and the people's what's best for the people. And another sort of side point, populism and nationalism are both demonized words to keep unity in the country and people power first. That mentality, it's to keep that from becoming popular. If you think that any politician who's actually just cares for the people is demonized as a populist and he's just telling the people what they want, that's one way to keep that conversation from happening. And then if as a nation we cannot be united in nationalism, the healthy side of nationalism, not racial nationalism or ethno-nationalism, but just nationalism where we care about our nation and our values as a nation, if they shut that down too by calling that like Nazi stuff. And the Nazis were the National Socialist Workers' Party, so they are fundamentally choosing to target the nationalist part of that and ignoring the socialist part of that. The nationalism was fine. It's just about healthy, with all these things, it's healthy versions of it. Like socialism in its strict definition is not okay, but in its loose definition of just government welfare sort of redistributionist policies, within 25 to 30% of GDP, as long as government doesn't spend more or less than that, and they have room in the budget for it, there's no issue with it inherently, as long as it adheres to equality under the law. Well, that was a nice little rant. Anyways, most people are moderates. That's what the science shows. The right-wingers know what the individuals need to do to uphold the traditional system and what is valuable and what we need to hang on to. And left-wingers know the frontiers and the new challenges that we have, and they look at what the collective system has to do to work for all the individual systems. And obviously, you as an individual have a role to do what you can and control the aspects of your life that you have control over to create the odds to be ever in your favor. And then the system itself can then be neutral, lift you up, or push you down. We have a system that pushes most people down, and only the strongest survive. And that is not the best way to go. We can have other approaches. Anyways, I think that's it. Most people are moderates. Science says so. All of the I can't believe I'm saying this at the end. All of the scientific personality traits follow a standard distribution, which means most people fall in the middle. I should have said that earlier in the video, but whatever. My first video in a few days. I'm a little rusty. I'm just cranking this out. I'm going to start doing videos daily again. I started a new job, so I've been busy the last few days, and it's been a grind, but it's been excellent. I'm so happy, so grateful to have a job and to be able to have an income coming in again that I'm earning myself with my own sweat and work. And I'm gonna keep on cranking out these videos, man. This political movement, this moderate political movement, we're in our baby stages right now, but I really believe that with the right leadership, with the right motivation, with the right determination, most importantly, screw motivation, with the right determination and the right mission, we can make this happen. We can serve the people. We can create not a utopia, but we can create an optimal set of government policies to make human beings flourish. And we can actually make that, we can export that to the entire world eventually and make it so that the entire world is free. And slavery is finally actually dead. Human trafficking is actually dead. And life is actually valued across the planet properly. And only then can we say we are truly an enlightened species. Right now, we are a bunch of monkeys fighting each other, and we need to step up our game. So keep on leveling up your political understanding. Do your own homework and your own research and look into your own people. And we're going to keep on leveling up, and we can only go up from here. Peace.